I took my strange ways of being and made a world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made a world I couldn't get. I'm on the earth full of parts of me. What secrets did I find? Big and dark and stranger thing. The first one of my kind. I took my strange ways of being and made a world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made a world I couldn't get enough. I made a universe. Don't know who might be watching me. Step back round your high. Conversations in my mind. I put my fears aside. I took my strange ways of being and made a world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made a world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made a world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made a world I couldn't get enough. I made a universe. I couldn't get enough.
It's so easy. It's so easy. It's too easy, man. They make it too easy. It's like they study, you know. It's like they bare the teeth, but they want to just like consume it or something. It's not even there. You can see out, but no one can see in.
I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough. My family tree been on the run, chased by vampires raised on a blood. My roof's been tossed into the wind, can never go back home again. In my mind, in my heart, I believe that everything I am and everything that I'll be is the wildest fantasy. Can we live forever? Make water in the desert. Our love we can rekindle. My body is a symbol. My body is a symbol. My tree built all these ships and guns. Nightmares teach more than dreaming does. And I know that I won't look away. My soul, it goes there every day. In my mind, in my heart, I believe that everything I am and everything that I'll be is the wildest fantasy. Can we live forever? Make water in the desert. Our love we can rekindle. My body is a symbol. My body is a symbol.
Hi everybody, how's everyone doing today? My name is Daryl D'Angelo Terrell. I am the moderator for this here conversation, this preliminary titled "Queering the Black Gaze." So we're going to start off by first a land acknowledgement. The LA Media Conference is. Hello. Okay, sorry. The AMC is produced on stolen indigenous land, named the Wawi Yatanag, by the Anishinaabe people. This land is currently governed by the 1807 Treaty of Detroit between United States and the Ottawa, Chippewa, Wyandot, and Potawatomi nations. We honor their past, present, and future stewardship of this land and waters and stand in solidarity with Native people throughout the Anishinaabe and Wyandot nations and across Turtle Island. Detroit is a community of indigenous people from many nations, refugees and immigrants, descendants of enslavement and of the Great Migration. Once known by the code name Midnight as the last stop on Underground Railroad, we honor Detroit as the largest majority Black city in the United States. I'm gonna say that again. We honor Detroit as the largest majority Black city in the United States. With a long history of African American contribution, Detroit is also the US city with the largest concentration of Arab Americans, a border city with a historic and consistently growing Latinx community, and is influenced by a rich contribution of Asian American communities and movements. So we always want to just like give people a little bit of that history of Detroit before we like get into some good stuff, right? So now I'm going to introduce our three artists. Actually, I'm gonna introduce myself again. Hi, everybody. My name is Daryl D'Angelo Terrell from Detroit. So we're gonna say what up, though? What up, though? So we have with us today, we have Texas Isaiah, Shan Wallace, and Brianne White. I want to read their bios. Texas Isaiah is an award-winning first-generation visual narrator born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, currently resides in Los Angeles, California. In 2020, he became the first trans photographer to image a Vogue and Times cover. We're gonna get this baby his flowers, okay? He is one of the 2018 grant recipients of Art Matters, a 2019 recipient of the Getty Image Where We Stand Creative grant, a 2020-2021 Artist in Resident at the Studio Museum of Harlem, a 2022 Art Idea finalist. Outside of work, he enjoys building a powerful connection with the people in his life, meeting new people, nightlife, dancing, traveling. I saw this and I was like, you are so ghetto. Zeus Network, so we're gonna talk about Bad Boys Club later. Watering his plants and cooking. Next, we have Shan Wallace, a nomadic award-winning photographer, visual artist, and educator from East Baltimore. Inspired by the nuances of day-to-day life, of her surroundings in Baltimore, not as fixed narratives, but a multiplicity of experiences. Shan uses visual imagery to tell stories, document, and reflect on the versatility of Black life, politically, socially, truthfully, and imaginatively, in order to help articulate the voices of the community and assist in shaping our understanding of our ongoing history. Lastly, but not least, we have Brianne White. Her bio reads, "My mission in life is to uplift my community and give a voice and platform to the limitless power and beauty of the Black experience. In photography and in high-end creative direction, I exist as a full self and thrive on the path that I was told would not be viable. In my work, I manipulate traditions and glorify scenes that are seen as ordinary as a way to honor my own non-traditional path. I have used the city of Detroit as a backdrop to launch my international brand that now executes cross-sector collaborations, social justice campaigns, exhibitions, and panel discussions, all with an eye towards authentically amplifying authenticity. It's about providing people with the opportunity to be bold and to feel beautiful, talented, and seen." Again, let's give a round of applause to our three amazing artists. To the people who are tuned in on Zoom. I hope, you know, we're gonna have some fun. If y'all would like to live tweet or anything, please do so. So, for one, I just want to say I am so happy to be here with y'all. I'm gonna be honest, I'm fangirling because I love all y'all work. As a photographer myself, all three of you are photographers who I'm always looking at, who make work that I even sometimes feel like I can't make. In ways that I wish I could. So I just want to, for one, say thank y'all for just existing and making beautiful work.
Thank you for existing.
I feel like I'm on mute on Zoom. One second, okay. Thank you.
So, of course, we got questions, and I want to start off by asking, how do you define the Black gaze? And for people online, I'm not saying gaze as in limp wrist. I'm talking about gaze as in G-A-Z-E. Look, got to make that clear, my baby, okay? Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Before I start, I would like to say free Brittany Griner.
That part.
I think for me, you know, the oppositional gaze written by Bell Hooks is something that I read all the time. I feel like every time I read it, I learn something new. Every time I read it, I figure out that I overlooked something or I might have skipped a sentence or so. But in the very beginning of that, you know, that text, she says that her gaze is political. And I think that that's something that we can, you know, that we know about Bell Hooks, that it's obvious that her gaze is political. My gaze is a celebration of Black people. It is a celebration of being a Black person. And so, because I am a Black person, much of my subjectivity, Black people, isn't an outsider gaze. It is one that is within communities. It is one that is very connected to my own self, my ancestry, my people that I share this this planet with and this experience with. And so I want to say that the gaze for me is like home. It is a place where I feel like that I can reflect. I feel like that is an act where I feel like that I can make a change, but I can also be critical and observant. It is a place and an act where I feel my most at peace. Being a photographer is a challenging job. It is a challenging act, but it feels like I know that this is my calling. It's not something that I have to think about or often question. And it has been the most healing for me, and it's been the most rewarding for me. And I say that because as a photographer, most of my work is in collaboration with my community. And what I really mean is the people I take photos, my sitters, we're collaborators. We work together to make this work. We also have shared ownership of this work because I feel like that we all as Black people are experiencing a crazy amount of erasure. And so in order for us to at least have some sort of responsibility to that notion, this has to be a collaborative effort. And so my gaze is a celebration, but it's also an act of collaboration. It is an act of being one with my sitters and my subjectivity. And it's something that I feel like is constantly growing, but also constantly becoming more and more of a collaboration. It's becoming more and more democratic because my gaze is just not just my gaze. It's a gaze that I am starting to understand more. It's a gaze where I have my own agency, but also it's a collaborative thing. And so much of my gaze and my process is pretty democratic, where everyone plays a role, and it's not just one voice. It's voices of a lot of people. It's voices of a lot of communities. And so it's a whole pot full of a lot of things and full of a lot of ingredients.
Would anyone else like to go?
I mean, I think you said everything.
Oh my God.
I mean, period.
I think that we all can really just. I'm not speaking for all of us, but I think in some ways that I was thinking of you to us four in mind when thinking about that and being familiar with your work. It's just something that I feel like is constantly shifting, constantly growing and evolving. I feel like as photographers, and maybe you can relate, we're always changing.
Yeah.
Our minds are always changing. We're always observing differently. Our eyes are working differently. And since that's the case, that only translates to the work. That only translates to the outcome and the process. So I had all of us in mind for that answer.
Look, collaboration.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. Just let people know, I do curse a bit. My bad. Not really. I do curse. I'm not gonna say my bad. Sorry, not sorry. What does it mean to be queer? And when I say queer, I'm not talking about gay as in who we fuck. I'm talking about like, what does it mean to be queer?
I can go right now. Like, I guess for me to be queer, and especially like a queer artist, I have the opportunity of photographing so many different people in so many different communities. But outside of just taking a picture, like I have that conversation, like that conversation that can like inspire people to do what I do, you know, as a businesswoman, because I look at myself as a Black queer businesswoman that does art, you know, so it's like something that I promote, like the business side, and, you know, something I give back and everything. So that's how I feel, you know.
Anyone else like to tackle that question?
I was actually trying to find that quote by Bell Hooks. I think you know which one I'm talking about.
I know exactly which quote. I do not know it verbatim.
I know.
I was thinking about the quote when I thought
But I'm
about
like
the question.
I kind of want to bring it up and read it. Is that cool?
Please, yeah, look it up.
I feel like while you find it, I'll give my 2 cents. I think, so the question was, what was the question again?
What does it mean to be queer? Not gay as in who we're fucking, but beyond that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's simple. It's being fluid and slow and just always shaping, always taking new form, always becoming something that has been invited into your world or sometimes not invited. It's like, you know, like how Bruce Lee talks about water. Shapeless, formless, always adapting, always flowing, always being fluid. And for me, that's what queerness is about. I mean, there are intersections where my queerness also is in conversation with who I'm fucking, for sure, because I'm a lesbian.
Got it.
But for me, it's simply about being fluid and never shutting out any parts of the world, never shutting out any parts of your own experience or experiences of others, because as photographers, we're observers.
Definitely.
So I'm always in somebody's business. Like, I'm always looking at people and staring and always acting on that gaze. And because I'm doing that, I'm always taking things in, and it's always a place of like, I'm queer, I'm taking this in, I learned this thing, I saw this thing, and just completely being in tune with the world and allowing the things that I take in just be, I guess, like an ingredient to my identity.
Nice. Did you find it?
I did.
Okay.
And, you know, I think this sums up the answer to that question. I'm someone that's like, you know, when I find that quote, that answer, I'm like, I don't really need to contribute any more to that, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what it is. And, you know, I just want to also say, just rest in peace, Bell Hooks, because it was extremely devastating to lose her and to lose so many of the people who have shaped this world for us, but also they are astounding ancestors, you know, that we get to pray to and remember every day. But queer not as being about who you are having sex with. That can be a dimension of it, but queer as being about the self that is at odds with everything around it and has to invent and create and find a place to speak and to thrive and to live. Ashe.
Ashe.
I like that word, invent, because I feel like
We're forever we're world builders.
Yeah, and I feel like as a person who feels like the term queer is an umbrella word, and I like to be very specific on who I love and how I live my life, I feel like my relationship to the term queer is always being reinvented. I'm always trying to figure out what that means. I'm always kind of at odds with that word and with that term when it comes to taking it on as a definition of myself.
Yeah, because we also have to like destroy many things that we've been taught.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
it's always we're always in a space of reinventing ourselves and the world around us.
Yep.
Definitely,
Yep.
definitely.
Listen, I've been going through that since like 2015. Like, even like today, I'm like, dang, what do it mean? Like, you know, because I'm like, I've been identifying, like, I'm so used to titles, like, and it's just like, how do I identify? How do I identify on a daily basis? So, and that's why I feel like even in my art, like, having people to relate to, especially now, like, it's easy to like kind of flow through it and talk about it, you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Oh no, go ahead. What you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I feel like language like builds really beautiful containers for us, but it's also very limited, right? Like
Thankfully.
when I think about myself, I'm just like, you know, how do I identify today? And sometimes I don't have the language for that. And I think at first it felt like a loss, but it actually no longer feels like that because I feel like good within myself, and I think that that's what counts, right? It's yeah.
I like what you said about it being sometimes language being limited, because I feel like I wake up every day and I'm like, I can be whoever the fuck I want to be.
Definitely.
And I'm exactly whatever I want to be this day, and that looks different every day.
Which goes back
You
to
feel
like,
me?
the fluidity of queerness.
Yes.
Like we're able to become whoever we want to be.
Whoever we want to be.
Chameleons.
I can wake up and be like, I'm gonna be Beyonce today if I want to.
I mean,
You know?
which Beyonce? Is it B-Day? Is it Sasha Fierce?
You know?
I'm Sasha Fierce on a good day.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so let's get into some more photography-specific questions. How do you use your power behind the lens to make sure Blackness is seen beyond the norm? And how do you feel that you challenge the voyeurs of the image?
I feel like my goal is to just always, like, I look at television, I look at a lot of shit. I'm still a person that buys magazines. All I do is read. I have a residency at the library, so I'm at the library all day looking at other people's shit. And I think most times what I take from it is there are so many things I don't see. There are so many things I want to see. Okay, now what? The solution is to create it or to work with other people to create it. And so I'm always thinking like the things that I want to make, I want to resemble the archives. I want it to reflect who we are. But I also want it to be some shit that only Shan can make. And that's a driving factor for me because, you know, our gazes are also different. Our techniques and methods of taking images is also different. The way that we talk about our own work is different. But I'm always seeking to just make work that I know is super true to me, but also work that I feel like just pushes the genre of photography forward, that pushes onlookers forward. And when it comes to voyagers, I mean, honestly, really, voyeurs, I always just invite the audience to celebrate. And maybe you can celebrate what is in the image, maybe you can celebrate your own people and your own self, but I'm not one to try to dictate how the work is taken. I like to just, once I put it out there, it's there. And of course, with my Virgo moon, I got a lot of critique of it. Like, nigga, you could have did this, or this could have been cropped, or this could have been this way, this could have been a wider thing. But I'm always in the process, in the photography process, because it's collaborative, I'm thinking about my sitter, but I'm solely thinking on pleasing myself and trying to get to the point where I like what I made. And then when I put it out, if you like it, okay, that's fine. But it's there and it serves a purpose, and I have a community of people that I'm in service of that plays a large role in the things that people see.
Baby,
I'm sorry. Yeah, the
Yeah.
question was, how do you use your power behind the lens to make sure blackness is seen beyond the norms? Also, how do you challenge us as the voyeurs of the image?
Okay. Yeah. Man, you be like going deep with it. I be loving that. Like you inspiring me right now. But like I think for me it's more of I encourage like people. I really like my goal is to for people to see my art in the next 400 years. Like my art is like inspired by biblical figures. Like so I want to change the way people look at Jesus Christ, people look at Virgin Mary, people look at angels. Like my goal is like I honestly want my work to be in the Bible. Like so it's just like when people like see and you know go to these churches, they see my art. You know when they go to these museums where they have like and I love about museums and galleries is that they preserve art for thousands and millions of years. Like I want my art to be preserved in that way. So when people look back, you know, just like you said, they see themselves. That's the only way you can change it, you know. So, and you know, I feel like, and just recently, I think with like Definition of Red, which is like my first exhibit, was when I really put stories to my images. So, because before I used to like put an image up without a dialogue. And now just having like that dialogue behind it, it's like I can give like a moment in history of how this was made and why this was made, you know, so that's, you know, yeah.
So, Texas Isaiah, before you go, I just want to say something because when I think about your work, I feel that you oftentimes, as a voyeur of your work, that you allow us to look. The fact that sometimes your portraits are depicting Black, queer, and trans people in a way that is very soft, in a way that I feel like oftentimes we don't get that depiction. So I just want to again. I want to throw some flowers at you.
I want to comment on that too, but I'm gonna let you go.
I appreciate that. I
No
think
problem.
when I was just thinking about the question, and also, y'all, let's talk about it. It's hot in here. I'm exfoliating, right? So I just.
Where my fan at?
But it's so interesting because it's not that I do not think of the audience, but I don't think that I consider audiences. Because I think that is out of my control, which is very difficult because of my earth sign placements. But I don't think that I want to kind of extend so much energy. I really appreciate you. This care work is beautiful, right? But yeah, it's just that I can't think about who's going to walk into the room and their assumptions about myself or the sitter in the image. But what I do place a lot of my thinking around is how to shape an image with a sitter. And I think that can also take time, especially when you're speaking about Black trans people in the visual archive, which even today in 2022, there aren't that many Black trans people who are being imaged, or Black trans people who are imaging other Black trans people. And so because there is this massive erasure, I think that to build an archive in sort of the beginning stages, it's always going to take a long time because you, at least for me, I'd rather build a relationship and speak to the person about what they would like to see, right, over the course of maybe a single day or maybe a couple years or maybe a couple decades. Yeah. If if it means that we will be collaborating for that amount of time. Yeah. And I think that, when we look at Black people and just, Black queer and trans people in media, I think that those images and that representation is, it looks good. It's for aesthetics. Yes. It's for performance. Yes. It doesn't lend to the well-being of our everyday lives, to the quotidian. And so when I make images, I want the sitter to understand that we are crafting their world together. Yeah. And so it doesn't it doesn't have to look like accommodating to an audience. It doesn't have to look like your gaze has to be averted directly into the camera. Like, I really want people to figure out how to be able to be within themselves when there is this tool in front of them that has caused so much violence and still continues to, right? And so much of that is also who's behind the camera, which is why even if we are Black, even if we are queer or trans, you can stop if you want to, too, 'cause I don't want you to get too tired. Okay, cool. Because I was like, that's exerting a lot of energy. But even as we are who we are, we still have to question, our intentions, because we can still perpetuate a lot of those violences, a lot of those visual violences onto our own communities. And so, I think for me, every single day, there's a new question for me, like, how can I care differently, within this industry and this practice that is so violent? It was built off of violence, right? How can I be more intentional? What questions do I need to ask sitters? What kind of new conversations do I have to have about with sitters around where their images are going, how they feel about their archive? I think it's something that I challenge myself with, because it's not that I'm very proud of the work that I've done, and then also at the same time, I want to feel more challenged every day to make sure that I'm not feeling so comfortable that I got it all right, because we live in this world and we're never going to get it all right, because we're all sort of playing a hand in capitalism.
Right.
And we all have to we have to be realistic about that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think that the questioning, right, and the intentionality around bringing people into this practice and making sure that they are feeling cared for, and then also being responsible if they are not feeling cared for within this practice, and then also being open to them changing their minds around how they want their images to be held over time. And so I hope I answered the question.
No, definitely.
But
because you're talking about the power that you have, and I feel like oftentimes as artists, we may want to control how our work is taken in, digested, spoken about, written about, but we don't always have that power. So yeah, no, definitely.
So you made a point earlier that I want to comment on. Your headshot is my favorite.
Did I not bring that up earlier? I was like, the fact that it's not their face.
Because you force us to see you how you want us to see you. And I really respect that. Your back is turned, it's your head, you have on a hoodie, which has all sorts of symbolic, information and meanings, but you really have this way in your work of allowing us just a peek in. I know you're not thinking about the audience, but it seems like that what you make and how we look at it is only on your terms. Which I really appreciate, which is why the headshot, I'm like, fuck, it's such a, I feel like it's such a challenging way for us to even look at you and see you, and it's just really just on your terms. And another point that you made, I think that there's really a lot of power in the photographers, but there's a lot more power in our sitters, because they show up.
Yeah.
And I think that, we tend to really disregard consent. Because when people come and sit with us and allow us to take their photos, and if you're shooting film, they can't see it right then and there, which is a whole nother conversation, which is also which can be a barrier, because people like to see the shit as soon as you take it. But you got to develop it, and you got to wait. There's an entire chemistry process that comes along with using film. But there's so much power in the level of consent, because they come and they sit and they are sharing space with us, and they're allowing us to come into their world. And that's a lot of power. And I want to credit some of the power, in your question, to the sitters and our subjectivity, because they allow us.
Yeah.
They share with us. They allow us to be holders of their ongoing personal history. They allow us to put them out in the world, into museums, in campaigns, in catalogs, in books, in magazines, on the wild, wild west, which is the internet.
Yeah.
Like,
Truly.
and you feel me? Like anything goes. Anything goes. You never know.
Right.
Like, don't read the comments. Like, that's a real thing.
Turn the comments off.
Turn the comments off. But it's just like, I really appreciate the power in just the collaborators in the sitter, because that power dynamic is very different. But to me, there's a hierarchy, and I feel like the sitter has a lot more power than us as photographers, solely because they consent to being a black person in the fucking future.
Definitely.
Facts.
Definitely.
I want.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good,
One
baby.
more
Don't say sorry,
thing.
keep going.
I just wanted to comment on that image because I took it, I think at the top of 2021, after I had a dream about my grandfather. He told me to cut all my hair off and to like kind of start over. And my grandfather passed away like right before I like to say initiated, but medically transitioned. And that image is so interesting because depending on what kind of events or the things that I do, like people have questions about it. But I think that the core of that image is that it is very anti-visibility. Like I'm a very anti-visible like person. Like there aren't a lot of images of me. I also like to play around with that because I know that also as being visual narrators, we're really contending with these standards of beauty for ourselves and also when we image other people as well. So, it's like, I love like, I don't like showing my face because I don't feel like I have to.
Yeah. You have control of that.
Yeah, exactly. But also it's just kind of like, why I always ask like, why do I have to like do a traditional head side? Or like, why is this like considered traditional?
Yeah.
Right? This very standard way of taking an image of someone for, business or corporate reasons. And I'm just like very like, you don't need to see me if I'm gonna show up and we gonna meet. And, I also, like the way that maybe it allows like a different sort of interaction when you are in a public space because people don't know how you really look.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Definitely.
Which is obviously very thoughtful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. So the archive keeps coming up. This like, Brienne, you speaking like the Bible is a type of archive, which we think about it, right? That part. So when y'all are making new work as black. I don't know what that was. As black queer photographers, does the archive, does the Black Queer Archive, is that a part? Is there a reference point in the archive for your work or an influence from the archive with your work?
Yeah, I think definitely for me. The one thing in 2013, I realized like I Photoshop a lot. Like people came to me because how I made skin look. But I was walking around New York one day and I came across Leia Bloom, this like the beginning of like kind of both of our careers and stuff. And I was like, ooh, I'd love to work with you. And I ended up like going and meeting so many people within that community in New York that I remember from 2014 to 2016, I only shot like raw images and posted raw images of like trans women, like from Siobhan to like Adam. Like I was able to like capture so many beautiful like people within this tiny room in New York. So I think that was like a period of like a moment in my life of like I was literally even like if y'all heard about like the Woodward and everything, RIP.
RIP to the Woodward.
Like I was like literally going into these after hours and making friends with like drag queens, like just getting stories, like loving like they glamorous. And I shoot people to look tall and like goddess and stuff like that. So just seeing like these little goddess like walk around the room, like just like they body language, they head, like they personality. I think that was like it was a moment in my life that I was like really inspired, you know, especially just giving people that raw photography too, like that studio, like look, cause I only shot studio during that time too, before I was like brave enough to go outside and, you know, shoot people with the environment, so yeah.
You know, I think when I think about the queer archive as a whole, and also the amount of people that we had, you know, lost to the AIDS epidemic, like we lost like so many iconic people who still continue to influence us to this day, but they deserved to live longer lives, you know? And so I think that the work that they produced within their lifetime definitely influences me, but I think it's so much more about the gaps. The people and the stories that are missing from the archive is the thing that influences me the most. I'm always looking at like what has been created, even today, and asking myself like, okay, like what more of us, like what story is missing, you know? And also, I'm someone who believes that sometimes I'm not meant to actually create or help create those stories, you know, which speaks to the abundance of community, you know? Like I like to stay in my place and, you know, do the work that I do and allow other people to kind of contribute to this beautiful archive that we're all like building right now. But I think, yeah, like when I think of the queer archive, it's usually about like, you know, what's missing today, what's gonna be missing tomorrow, what are we overlooking, who are we also not allowing to tell their own stories.
I love hear you bring that up because I think back to the Schomburg Library in New York and how they have this extensive history of like Black queer nightlife, thinking about like Black lesbians, black trans performers, Black drag performers in ways that, I'm gonna be honest, I had never heard of until I think I went to like Black Portraiture Conference and they spoke and I was sitting there like a good kid with my notebook just going at it. Would you like to add anything?
I spend a lot of time with archives. I spend a lot of time thinking about them.
Right, because you said you're currently at a library.
Yes. As a photographer, I'm building my own. And I'm always referencing other types of archives and materials because I learn from other artists. I learn from other photographers. I learn from other people who are doing this work because so many of them have laid the groundwork. They've shown us what it takes to do this. They've shown us different methods and ways and techniques of doing this. And often, you know, archives are in museums, churches, libraries, they're in these institutions. But for me as a photographer, I'm thinking about archives being in people's homes and people's wallets, literally accessible, and making archives accessible. And so as a photographer, I give people copies of photographs. So this family, these kids in my neighborhood by my studio, I photographed, and these kids was wild. Like, I had $7 in my pocket. I gave them that. I gave them my chain and my phone, and they took photos to tell me that this is going to be their future album covers. I'm like, all right, cool, we can do this. And I gave them all copies, and the grandmother, I saw her like a couple weeks later, and she said to me, she was like, when you walk into my house, when you walk down my hallway, you see all of the photographs that you took of my grandkids. And that really meant a lot to me because, again, archives are usually in libraries, churches, institutions. The archive is in her house. And so for me, it's like, I'm always referencing archives, obviously. I mean, that's how I learn. But I'm always trying to, like Texas Isaiah said, figure out what's missing and also figure out how to make it more accessible. Everybody don't get to go to the museum. I went to my first museum when I was 21. Like, everybody, you know, maybe your church had a lady that was in the back recording the services and taking pictures of the Sunday school and the morning breakfast days, but like maybe there's someone doing that, but it's just very important to me to make whatever archive I'm creating and starting to discover very accessible. So I am a resident at the library. It's called the Enoch Pratt Libraries in Baltimore. We have 22 locations. We have a very strong library system. And during my time there, all I'm doing is reading archives. All I'm doing is following librarians and archivists, and I know I get on their nerves because I'm constantly asking questions. I'm constantly like just over their shoulder trying to figure out these more institutional ways of archiving because I don't really know. I'm not trained as an archivist. I just have an imagination and I have a practice that is somewhat non-traditional, but I'm trying to see how I can kind of intersect and merge these traditional ways of archiving and these non-traditional ways of archiving to make it just a lot more accessible because archives simply just are not accessible. And thank God for like Black Archives, Renata in Chicago and like all these different people, you know, who are doing this work, especially like online on these platforms that we use the most. But what about off the platforms? Yeah. How do people assess them? Not everybody goes to the library. Not everybody goes to church. Not everybody goes to these places. So I feel like as a photographer, it's like a duty of mine to see what's missing in the archive, contribute to the larger archive that, I mean, Gordon Parks, Curry May Weems, Texas Isaiah, Shan Wallace, you know, you two, like, we all are part of this larger archive, and I agree again with Texas Isaiah, we all have a role. It's like basketball. Everybody's a role player. And so how do we play our roles to contribute to this larger archive, and then how do we make this archive accessible? Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious in Baltimore, our public schools are failing children. And so how can we use archives to educate them, educate ourselves? I have a friend, Savannah Wood. Has anyone ever heard of the Afro-American newspaper? So the Afro-American newspaper is the oldest Black and family-owned newspaper in the country. It's over 200 years old. It was started by a Black couple. This Black man, his husband, got $200 from his wife and started this paper. Savannah Wood is a photographer, civic worker, and she has Afro Charities, which is now a nonprofit and an idea and project that takes 200 years of archival material, digitize them, allow them to be accessible so teachers can make curriculums, so there can be workshops, so it can just be so accessible to communities and to students in a time where I feel like we really need it the most. So to answer your question, yes, I'm always referencing archives, I'm always thinking about it, but I think my biggest priority is to always see how I can personally work to make it a lot more accessible to everybody.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation with my mom, right, pretty much all the time, because I've been trying to get access to my family photo albums, right? And I remember hearing, I can't remember what publication or what I was reading, there used to be this idea that Black people did not know how to keep records. And I'm like, y'all clearly ain't met somebody's grandmama from Alabama. Y'all clearly ain't met somebody's auntie from rural Texas. Y'all clearly, like, the way that we archive, especially photos, like my sister has obituaries from 1992 that she has in a box, right? And like, when I think about that, I oftentimes think about like, we may not be institutionally trained as archivists, but we are archivists. It's in our blood.
Yes.
That's something that's like embedded in us, because for so long we weren't the own stewards of our own history.
And we relied on a lot of that. We relied, you know, look at the photo of Auntie Tina. She died 20 years ago, but there's a photo of her. You have context and you have a face of Auntie Tina. Like, it's just that has just been a part of all of our upbringings, like, you know, the archive. And granted, it's a personal one and it's not super institutional based, but we are archivists, you know. We're all providing people with the archiving starter pack, and that really is a photograph of themselves. That's all we need to start it. That's all we need to start some people's archives, giving people photographs, if it's digitally or, you know, a print. That is demonstrating the value of archiving. So I think as photographers, we're all doing that in our own different ways.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a specific question for y'all as well. So with Brianne, I love hearing about like that the time in which you were intentionally photographing queer and trans people. Um, mm, where where is that now? So like where like when I think about like this question is more so me thinking like is there a point in which you will reintroduce photographing like more queer and visibly trans people within your
Yeah.
practice?
I think I think it come with just the dialogue
Okay.
behind it. I think when people see my work, they see like this beautiful framed image
I
of
mean,
this.
cause you good for ornate frame,
Yeah,
Brienne.
like, but like a lot of people don't know, like a lot of the models, like the subjects behind that art is trans women, trans men, you know, like queer people. So I think it just come with just that conversation of, and like even with my next project, Dance of a Black Man, it's gonna have like people, black people of color and queer like models within it. You know, even with like some of my art that's being presented now, like I have Jay Stalin, like that, you know, a trans, like, you know, I
love Jay.
Feel me?
I love Jay.
Like, you
That's a
know, so
bad
it's just
bitch.
like, I think it's just come with the conversation, you know, of understanding like, hey, Brienne, you know, who is this? How was this created?
Yeah.
Instead of just like looking at the image and creating that story for yourself.
Alright.
Why not? So I think that's like really it.
Beautiful. So for Texas Isaiah, I'm about to give you some more flowers. Ooh, sorry, y'all. Azealia Banks told me to blow my nose, and I'm clearly not listening. For those who get it, Azealia Banks slid in my DMs.
The girls that get it, get it. The girls that don't.
Azealia Banks slid in my DMs and cussed me out a few weeks ago. If you look at my Instagram, you'll find it. I'm sorry. It's funny. Anyways, so with Texas Isaiah, why did I bring that up? Why did I say that?
Because it's iconic and the people needed to know.
Because it's fun. Because I'm archiving that moment. There we go. Full circle. So Texas Isaiah, I feel like you exclusively photograph black, queer, and trans people, right? How do you feel that adds to the lexicon and the canon of black photography? And the reason I'm asking you this, these are the flowers. I don't know if you recognize this or not, but the work that you do and your presence has definitely put you in this canon. Again, the fact that, like, going back to the bio, the first black trans person to photograph a cover of Vogue, the first black trans person to do these milestone things that, like, for a lot of us, never seem to be tangible. For a lot of us, it's like I can't reach that camera physically from sitting right here, but like it feels like you can like reach. Come on, Mr. Fantastic, you can reach. So like, how does it feel to know that you are adding to this history, this lexicon, this canon of photography, that you're building on this canon of black queer photography?
I appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem.
You know, I was on a panel recently, and you know, I brought up that iconic image of Laverne Cox on the cover of Time, which media consider that moment the trans tipping point. And it was also around the time of my medical transition as well. And I remember I still have that cover in prime condition, by the way.
Archiving.
And I remember thinking, you know, there were a couple things that I was thinking about, right? Like, at the time I was still living in Brooklyn, so I'm like, okay, I'm understanding how people in my community are you know, how they're reacting to this image, but I wonder how people in like the Midwest and like the South and maybe the West Coast are sort of reacting to this moment, right? And I meditated on that image because I was like, okay, on one hand, this is remarkable, and then on the other hand, what place, what position do black queer and specifically black trans people have within like the larger visual archive. How is that going to be developed? And, you know, during that time too, because, you know, we're often plagued with having to figure out how to survive, you know, it never crossed my mind that I would be somebody who is able to contribute to that. And, you know, I'm so like, I'm so passionate about my people, you know, like, I say that I'm T for T, and I know that that's a terminology that used to be used in the chat rooms back in the day. But to me, it's a politic.
Throwback.
But to me, it's a politic. You know, it doesn't only like, you know, speak to my connection with trans people romantically, but platonically and spiritually and beyond. Like, I choose to love trans people. I choose to love myself. And so the way that I approach imagery of Black trans people is very sacred to me, because I know also the things that we have to deal with every single day, especially the people who do not have access to a lot of resources like housing and employment, right? Those people I still hang out with. You know, those people I still try to support as much as possible emotionally and otherwise. You know, those are the people that I choose to love and that I don't ever want to leave behind. You know, I grew up in the hood, I grew up in the streets. You know, I think that a lot of people tend to leave us behind when we are the culture makers, if anything. You know, a lot of the lingo, a lot of the terminologies, the ways in which people dress and think come from the streets. And so, you know, I think I'm so, like, one, blessed to be, like, alive, right? Like, because, child, life really be, life be a lot, life be lifing. So I'm blessed to be alive, I'm blessed to be here and to be open enough to learn more about how to care for my folks, even outside of photography, right? And as much as that, you know, celebrity work, that editorial work, I think that, you know, it's cute. You know, I have to say that because, like, I was always in a position where, like, I couldn't think about what it would be like to make work for Vogue. I didn't have the opportunity to even, like, we could speak about how we don't get the opportunities to even think about certain things, like building a family, like love, let alone photographing a cover that I had no idea that those British Vogue images would be a cover. They ain't tell me that. But I got to photograph Janet Mock. That was a milestone for me. You know, cool, you know, much love to everybody else that was part of that, but it was Janet Mock. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I think that work is significant, but, like, guess what? I would love to take photos of Janet Mock, like, in her backyard, in her home, right? Like, somewhere that brings her peace. Those images are the most important images, you know? And I think that you know, some people feel, you know, I could tell people's reactions to me when I'm just like, yeah, the editorial work is cool, the cover work is cool, yeah, just photograph Kerry Washington. She's cool, she's my height, yeah, you know, like, you know, she's short.
I did not know she was short.
Yeah, she is.
I love Kerry Washington.
Same.
Yeah. And that work is great. I think that I want it to inspire people to understand, especially Black trans people, that if that is what they want to do, you can do it, right? You're capable of doing it. And then on the other hand, not everyone desires to do that work. And so I also want to make space for people who don't want to do commercial editorial, but may want to do, like, more private, like, want to build more private archives, may want to photograph their friends and their lovers, because that's how I started in photography. I started with what was around me, and that is what I'm most passionate about. You know, like, my sister is in the crowd right now, Aya Simone, legend, Detroit legend. And, like, but, like, you know, and the reason why I bring her up is because I have yet to have a photo session with her. right?
Well, you here in
But-
Detroit now.
I know, but I may not have enough time, but like still, like we still talk about what that can look like. That is the work that I'm passionate about. I want to image my sister. You know what I'm saying? For years to come, that is the work that really like, it also, like, it almost brings me to tears because I know that when we look back, right, because there's also so much going on in this world, so many people trying to take our lives that even if we reach to 30 and 40, 50, it is so sad that those are monumental ages for us to live up to, right? But when we do reach 70 and 80, I want us to look back on those images that we've all made and celebrate each other and the things that we have poured into each other. Because like the thing too is that like, yeah, like people be like, you know, Texas Isaiah, you made these images. And I'm like, yeah, I did, but I made them with other people. And those people contributed to my growth and contributed to my livelihood. I would not be able to make this work without the people, you know, without the streets. I don't care about Anna Wintour. I love Edward. He's doing amazing work at British Vogue. But if the streets ride with me, that's all that matters.
Straight up.
I love that.
That's so.
I love that so much. Damn. So when it comes to photographing queer people, Black queer people, what means of protection do you feel your work provides? That's the question for all of y'all. So
Ask
what?
it again.
Okay. When it comes to photographing us, what means of protection do you feel your work provides?
We're facing erasure. We're facing erasure. Y'all get it? Yeah, no? No, we're really facing erasure.
Right.
It is urgent, this work.
Yeah.
It's urgent.
Yeah.
And it's urgent because, one, we are being killed.
Yeah.
We are disappearing.
Yeah.
We are not being acknowledged and recognized. We are being pushed to, you know, the shadows in a lot of ways and surviving to come out into the sun. This is urgent work.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to make it. It takes a lot to convince people that they're worth even being a part of this work, that they're valuable and that their life matters and that they are worthy of being imaged, you know, like being imaged. And so, I mean, because think back,
Yeah.
we didn't have our photograph taken.
True.
And then when we did have our photograph taken, it was with who kids? And then when we had our photograph taken, it was on whose terms?
And for what?
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So like
definitely.
this is fucking urgent because we have Black photographers who have autonomy over their lives and their bodies, who have the will, who have the motivation, who have the money, who have the resources, who have the community and the collaboration. We have the things that we need, you know, like we don't need to think about the things that we don't have. We have so much now to make this work because this work is urgent.
Right.
And we're celebrating it now and we're looking at it now. And I take what I, just like Texas Isaiah said, I'm very passionate about my people and I take what I do very seriously. It's not a game because I'm seeing people I know and love disappearing left and fucking right.
Yeah.
And so this shit is urgent. It's not a game, it's not something to play around with, and it's so urgent that we have to make sure that we're always, always giving care, and we're always attentive, and that we're always meeting people where they are, because we all are different. You know, we all have a lot, we have different comprehension skills.
Definitely.
We all speak different type of language. I got a Baltimore accent. A lot of times niggas don't even understand what I say. You get what I'm saying? Like,
The way that it just kicked in as soon as you said that.
you know what I'm saying? So it's
Definitely.
like there's so much that needs to be done, and there's so much that is being done to get this work done, but it's urgent because we are being erased and left out for years, decades, centuries even. And right now it's, I feel like because we have, you know, agency and because we have, you know, resources and we have the means to do it, we need to be doing it.
Yeah.
And that needs to be a priority. And for me, it is a priority because we're being erased and we really do need to be the authors of our own history. Tired of niggas talking for me and my people. I'm tired of niggas coming up with these ideas that aren't even a pinch of reflection, true, honestly, reflection of who we are and the lives that we live.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
So much shit that I see, I'm just like, You know, people who write TV just watch TV. They don't go outside.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, how you writing about a certain type of life where
And
you're
you ain't
just
living
a
it.
spectator?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're only a spectator. And you probably don't even have friends that fit into this community. Nah, no more. It's not happening. This shit is urgent. So whatever y'all do out there, I want to encourage you to put some urgency behind what you do, because what you do is important. What we're all doing is very important, because we're facing erasure, and it's giving real apocalyptic times right now.
That part. And would anyone else like to add to that? I'll be like, the way
That just struck a chord. Like,
yeah. I love that.
it struck a chord because I feel so serious behind what I said, and
Yeah.
because, you know, our practices is changing, my practice is changing. There are a lot of things that I could do as a photographer that I just simply cannot do anymore. And there are so many people I've seen just pass on and transition and just disappear. And I feel like as pop culture is going into the direction that it's going, myself and many others are going into a different way, because, I mean, when has the masses really ever made anything critical? I'm waiting. Right, so I'm just like, yeah, this is urgent, and it's up to us to do it, because we can't wait for anybody else, and we can't sit around and complain about the things that we don't have, because one thing Black people gonna do is make a way.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Well, shit. Would anyone else like to add to that? I feel like that was just so much. So much needed, yes. Damn. It's like
I'm glad it was a word. I'm glad that you're a little speechless
yeah,
right
I'm
now.
like, you know, because I mean, as a photographer, I oftentimes forget how important the work that I do is.
Yeah, we get caught up in a lot of shit and a lot
Definitely.
of noise. That it's just noise. It doesn't serve us. What we need to be doing is serving.
Yes. That. Fuck.
And it's really a shame too that we have to like experience such heavy bouts of imposter syndrome
Yeah.
when there are people who don't actually ever have to experience that, you know, but the work that they're making is not as impactful. You know what I'm saying? But like we have to sit and question ourselves around, you know, are we doing enough? Are we making important work? Are we, you know, it's just, to me, it's just so, sometimes when I pull myself out of that space, I'll just be like, why am I even here in the first place?
Yeah.
Because, like, I remember on Twitter, I wrote something where I'm like, you know, when I see a really beautiful, powerful image, I never tell myself that I want to make an image like that. I send my praises to the fact that it exists in the world, right? Because photography is beautiful. One of the reasons it is beautiful, right, is because there are so many voices and stories that get to flood the archive, you know? And that speaks to our individualism, right? Who we are as people. There is only, like, and this is something that I tell myself every morning. I be hyping myself in the morning in the mirror. I have, like, affirmations around my mirror, because sometimes you need that in the morning, right? But I'm just like, wow, there's only one Texas Isaiah. There is one you, there is one you, there is only one you. Like, that is so beautiful. And so, you know, when we get into these, like, spaces of imposter syndrome, it's, like, really important to remind ourselves that we can contribute to something that is larger, and that we are important, right? And then when we come together, we can remind each other of how important we are. You know, like, for me, it's a privilege to be here in Detroit. I'm not from Detroit. I'm from Brooklyn. You know, I take every moment to say that I'm from Brooklyn.
As New Yorkers do.
But, you know, I feel so honored to be here on this land, too, right? Like, let's talk about going to other people's land and knowing that, like, I love to be here, and I rarely photograph here or pick up jobs. I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in doing is meeting people from the community, right, who are contributing to their own orbit. You know, like, there are so many legends that live in Detroit. Every time, like, when I hopped off the Spirit plane and came to the event and saw everybody, Tunde, Aya, everybody, like, that's so beautiful to me, because I'm like, wow, like, Detroit is such a beautiful place, right? And I get to experience that as somebody who is from Brooklyn. And I want to be able to also support that by not working here, but by like allowing like whatever I can do to like, you know, maybe bringing my resources here, or maybe bringing somebody from Detroit to New York or Detroit to LA, you know what I'm saying? And so like I think that each and every one of us, we're doing so many beautiful things. And that also does not only mean things that we produce, just our personhood, who we are, right? As people, the impacts that we're making within each other's lives is so beautiful, right? And so it's like, you know, you get into those moments where you're like, you know, I'm not doing enough or I'm not making beautiful work. Please step out of that. Do whatever you can to step out of that. And please remember that we are all contributing to a larger picture and we all need each other.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So these next two questions are personally some of my favorite questions I have. So one of them is, who are you accountable to in your work? Whenever y'all ready.
I think in my work, I'm accountable for like all of the people that grew up like me. I was not trained to be a photographer. I picked up a camera and lied and said I was one. You know, but I used the resources to do what I love to do on an everyday basis for the 12 years. So I feel like I'm accountable, inspiring the kids from the hood, like I'm from the east side, you know, the kids from Detroit, you know, and around the world to like do what they love to do on a daily, you know. So that's what I feel like I'm accountable for. Like, you know, anything is possible, like as an artist, you know, if you like put your mind to it. So that's how I feel.
I am accountable to my angels and ancestors that guide me every day through this shit. They're always, everything that I do is always in paying homage to them. It's always showing gratitude to them because I'm protected in those Baltimore streets because it's not an easy city to photograph. And so they keep me accountable very often. And I have a community of people that hold me accountable, that let me know when I'm on some shit, but also affirm me and remind me where I am and where I'm going, and remind me of the work that I said that I would do. And I certainly, more importantly, I'm always accountable to my community and my sitters because it is a collaboration and they're meeting me where I am. I gotta show up just as much. And I gotta extend that care and that attentiveness that I just keep mentioning because that's really real for me. And so when I'm thinking about accountability, I'm just thinking about that being an ongoing relationship. It's just something that just does not stop. If we come to terms that we are going to hold each other accountable, please hold me accountable, I'll hold you accountable. It's just not something that's just like a switch where you turn it on and off. It's something that is just so ongoing. It's so ongoing with community. It's so ongoing with my day ones and like my niggas that I'm close to. And it's certainly an ongoing spiritual relationship with my God and my ancestors and my angels.
Okay. So my next question is, I think it's beautiful and very simple, but who is your community?
Honestly, the world. Like, I can't even lie. My community is like everybody around the world that I connect with. So it's as simple as possible.
I think I could just say there are people that I have communion with, and there are people I share community with. Those two are very different.
Would you like to clarify the difference?
Sure. So when I think about communion, it's not necessarily putting our samenesses and differences to the side. We come together and miss all of that shit. The arguments, the beefs, the disagreements, the conflict, we come together while those things exist. And I feel like often in community, sometimes we gotta, just put it to the side and come together. And those two sometimes can, be fluid and flexible, of course, But when I think about very direct terms of community and communion, they're just really different for me. But also my community is just the people that choose me and that I choose. And I feel like often the people that I choose and that choose me are often people's names I don't know, faces I might not remember. And so just like you said, like it is a lot of ways the world, but sometimes it's, for me, it's a world that is a lot more intentional and smaller and direct. And those people I have communion with.
Yeah, that you connect, yeah. You
Yes.
know, so.
Okay, so I want to actually open it up to y'all who are here to ask questions. I know I didn't ask if I could do this, but I'm gonna do it. So is there anyone who would like to ask a question to any of our three photographers? I'm gonna come down and, I'm tall, I'm gonna hop down.
Hi, my name's Julia, and first and foremost, apologies, y'all just made me cry, and I'm feeling super nervous about that fact. I like to suppress those emotions. I hit really hard the thing about the reassurance, because I found having a hard time advocating for myself clearly. I am pursuing a career in stand-up comedy, and I was dumb enough to start it at the beginning of a pandemic, you know? And then, which is very hard to build community with people when all you do is exist online.
Yeah.
And especially because that's not my goal. My love of doing it is people. And the other one is I have recently come on to the board of directors for a summer camp that has been a very cyclical experience for me, because I went there as a child and as a very, very, very gay kid. I was constantly searching for validation in a public school system and an environment that literally left me out, right? Like, I don't know if y'all did this, but I was definitely like looking for lesbian and never found it, right? And you know, you're like going through it. So the erasure thing is so deep and held for me, because this is my brag, is that like I was able to attend this camp. I found it was a space that validated me in that way, despite the fact that it's not an overtly, like, it's a Christian camp, and people don't anticipate Christian spaces being accepting. And then as I came back as a program director 10 years ago, I was so adamant about being out and saying, like, we have to go through training to make sure our campus is as inclusive as possible for every kid. And then because magic works the way it does, I go through this, and then I have a parent contact me about a 10-year-old coming to this space, and how do we handle it? And we're like, guess what? We already had the conversation, so this isn't a surprise. I'm coming back 10 years later, and on the one end that is beautiful, and I'm being very, it's a plug, we have a week-long trans and gender nonconforming camp now. Because 10 years later, we have a camp which was started as a family camp, and the kids grew up. So first off, if any of you guys want this, I'm sorry. The reason I'm asking this for context is I am dealing with the erasure right now. I'm dealing with the kids who, like, were blocked out of seeing their community for years. And, like, I guess for me is, like, you keep talking about the accolades and the markers for what you are, what you found are your accolades because you could not find them and to get them validated professionally, right? I'm coming in with kids who are, like, scared of being alive. And I'm trying to tell them that there's, like, accolades that aren't there, that aren't professional, that aren't these metrics that you need to keep up with. And I think the gift as queer people is we didn't have that to start with, so we create our own. But as a child, searching for that is so much self-shame, right? So I'm trying to, like, prevent some of that in my own best way. So I was asking this because thank you for your time. Again, I'm just like, I get an opportunity to speak with these kids, and I get to come and tell them that I'm at, like, photographers, right? Like, I get to be like, you got, like, oh my gosh, we didn't know we could do this. So, like, what has been, like, kind of, I guess, like, what can I carry with me to them? To be like, you guys, I know we see what you're going through, because we've been there. We're trying to keep you guys alive, you know? Because if you don't stay alive, you can't add, we don't exist.
Thank you. If anyone would like to respond to that beautiful, lengthy question.
I guess, like you said, what can you carry back to them from us? Say that again? don't know. Like, I guess for me, I tend to preach confidence, like amongst like myself, like my overall self, and I would say like that's something that I just tend to preach is like confidence amongst like who Brienne is, like what my art mean, and where I really want to see myself in my community of people that like I inspire. So like I would say like confident. I know that's like it's yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I feel like the journey that you are embarking on is going to be a very exhausting one.
Yeah.
And I say that because, I'm saying it because that's a real fact. Like, searching for community, especially queer, gay, trans, the people in the community, that is very challenging because of the erasure, but also because of the lack of accessible resources to even begin to even cover our own lives, our personal lives, each other's lives, And so I think I simply just want to encourage you to just keep trying and to keep and really keep prioritizing these children because so I went to a school, I talked at a school one time and it was an all-girls school and two of the young students had asked me something. They're like in 9th grade or so. She's like, "Excuse me, Miss Wallace, I want to ask you something, but I don't want to offend you. I'm a little nervous to ask you." And when people say that, I usually am like, okay, where is this going to go? And so she was like, do you like girls? And I was like, oh, yeah, honey. Don't we all?
That part.
And they then looked at each other and dapped each other up like, yeah, me too, me too. And in that moment, I was like, fuck, I know it's so hard for y'all because I know you're not seeing the representation. I know you're not seeing in your community. I mean, I feel like the first gay person I might have saw on television was either George Michael or Ricky Martin.
I was about to say, was it RuPaul?
No. I mean, I was raised in a household, my grandparents were born in the late 20s. I was born in the 90s.
It was definitely
they were
not
not watching RuPaul.
He was on the Brady Bunch.
But they were watching the soap operas, and on the soap operas, I mean, Ricky Martin wasn't out, but we knew Ricky Martin was gay. And you knew George Michael was gay too. And Ellen came out a little later, but those were the only two people that I knew that were gay, and they were men and they weren't women. And we insinuated about the Brat and Queen Latifah, but we never really knew until 2 years ago. You feel me? So I'm saying that to say those children that you're working with have very similar experiences as me. It has been very exhausting trying to find your people and trying to find an archive and trying to really find the other side, the opposite side of erasure. So I don't know if I don't have really any advice. I just want to say I understand and I feel where you are coming from, but I do want to encourage you to keep going and keep trying and keep exhausting yourself because it will be for the greater good. It will help them. It will change their lives. It will give them the tools for them to figure out who they are and where they're going. And they will, they might not tell you at that moment, but they will accredit their journey and all of the things that they discovered to you because you did that work and you committed that work in ways that parents are not doing, in the ways that school administrators are not doing, in the ways that a lot of leaders are not doing and prioritizing. So I just want to, commend you, but also say, keep doing the Lord's work.
Thank you. We have one more question. Here you go. Photo specific.
Thank you so much, you guys, just for being here. I love all of your work. And I specifically want to thank you for what you said about community survival and the threat that community survival is under. So I was wondering if, when we talk about the archive, I think of that as a way of pushing this quest for survival. And this is for you and this is for anyone else on the panel. Does your work specifically have a message to it that you want people to pick up about community survival, about how to survive or the way we survive?
I think I blew.
We're going to get you another mic.
Okay, it is not working. It is now working. It is not working.
There we go.
Hello. Okay. Two things. I want to say that I just want to give a face to how we lived and how we survived. And I want people to know that there have been people before them who have survived, but who has also lived and who's loved, who's cared for, and who's extended that care, who's become professionals and who have, lived the lives that they wanted to live. And I feel like the archive will just guide you through the many journeys of people's lives, from nightlife to, art life to the streets. And so that's a valuable thing about archives. Like, it gives you these plethora of things, all of this variety to really see how people really lived, because there are people really dedicating a lot of time to building these queer archives, and there are a lot of archives that already exist. One that I'm thinking of is, it's called Creek something. I can't think of the name of it, but this black man had this like gay club in San Francisco, and you know what I'm talking about?
Is that Sadie Burnett's dad?
Yes.
What was
Eagle
it?
Creek. Have you
Eagle
heard
Creek.
of it? Great. I feel like Eagle Creek is just like a brilliant, and shout out to her and that whole thing, but I think that is
another archivist.
Yeah, I think that is a brilliant way of showing the history and the journey. And I think what I love about it the most too is that she gives the archive a different type of functionality. Like, it's not just material that you can read in a book. It's not just these files, but it's become this whole installation that you can experience. Have you experienced it? The one who asked the question. Have you experienced Eagle Creek, like the experience and exhibit? Okay, it's a whole thing. Like, you go into like this installation and everything's like pink and colorful and has all of these like vivid lights, and you can see the files from when the FBI was like tracking her father and tracking like the club, and then you can like see all of these just like visible like pieces of archive that is in the form of furniture, that's in the form of
music,
yeah. In the form of just like it's a bar. And so that's all to say, I really am grateful for not only the archive, but also the different types of functionality archives can have. And I think that is a brilliant project that really, really like shows you how we can use archives. It doesn't have to sit in a book, it doesn't have to sit online, but instead it can be utilized in a way that can be super transformative and provide a different type of experience that a lot of times reading can't, because, comprehension skills and accessibility and all these different things. And so personally, I want my archive to kind of do similar things. I want it to be a functional body of work, a functional journey, a personal journey of myself, but also with others, that really show you and tell you how we lived, so you can have the tools and the information to understand that for yourself. So when others are trying to figure out how to survive and how to live, you have seen all of this work that can just help you understand your life and your journey a lot more.
Beautiful. One more question. Let's make it photo specific, and please don't be long-winded. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you. Hello. Hey, everybody. My name's Jessica. I'm Brianne's little sister. Just hearing you all talk, not just as artists, but as photographers, you were talking about the functionality of archives. What is something, I'm just so curious, what is a piece of archive that y'all taken with y'all through the transition of life? And it can be an obituary, because that can mean something to somebody, or a photo from another artist, or your photo, something that when I move, this is coming with me, regardless of anything. Or maybe it's not one, and why is that?
Thank you.
Does the material have to be photographic? Physical, just physical, but not necessarily photographic. I actually don't carry that many photos with me, just because I change my wallet depending on what outfit I'm wearing. But things, right? I would say my jewelry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Do you want to
Or it could be in a home as well. Like something you keep from like home to home, not something like every day.
Okay. Books. Like my books. Like I have more books than clothes than anything else. Like through I've experienced large bouts of houselessness, especially when I first moved to LA in 2017. My books always came with me. I left everything else behind because those texts were the things that moved me through a lot of that depression, right? And I'm also I have like different editions of the same book, you know, because I just love, I love a good book cover, I love a good album cover. I'm collecting vinyls now, right? But books, they always came with me. Always felt tethered to them. I remember when I would have to move from place to place and I would leave behind some clothes in order to take an extra box of books, you know, because I know that some of them I would not be able to ever find again. But I think that my books are definitely items that I've always hung on to. And also because too, I love to pass them on to people. Like if somebody's over my crib or if I'm at a bar and we're having a very particular conversation and it's also somebody that may not be able to buy a lot of books, you know, I'm just like, you know what? I think that this will be so helpful for you. Like I love that act of service. It's one of my love languages. But I love doing that for people. So yeah, my books for sure.
I think you already know for me. So for the past, 10 years, I've been recording video, and for the past 3 years since I was 30, I've been having this little Polaroid white camera that I carry around. And what I do is I take pictures of people, I show them at that moment, and I'm like, y'all won't see this until I'm 40 years old. So these little Polaroid images literally move around with me, travel with me, and then it's fun to know that people are gonna get a chance to look at this Polaroid in the next 7 years when I turn 40. So it's just growth. I love just people being able to see damn, this is where I was at this time, because I do talk in timeline, 2014 this happened, or things like that. So I think that's a little thing that I carry around with me, house to house, because we're in my wallet.
I collect. I hope I'm not a hoarder. I told that you're a hoarder if it's not organized. Mine is pretty organized. That's not true. I'm not a hoarder yet, but I really might become later. But by then I'll have an estate, so that would be fine.
Period.
Yeah. So I do a lot of traveling primarily in the South, and I go and collect Black memorabilia, all racist shit that's in old white small towns. I just buy, and it just sits in my studio. My favorite thing, I also have, so we got new bus signs. So I have about 16 of our old bus signs, just in my studio. It's some iconic Baltimore shit. I collect cameras. And cameras because I shoot film, and so I have cameras that date back to the 30s. I don't even use them. I use them sometimes, but they're most there just to collect. But my favorite is I collect vinyls, and I primarily collect vinyls, and I go to Pittsburgh often to collect my vinyls, because has anyone ever been to Pittsburgh?
Yay.
Great. It's small industrial town, doesn't really change a lot, but they have these small vinyl shops, and they have this one shop called Jerry's. I just started going to the Attic, which is new. They have more newer stuff and it's smaller, but Jerry's is it's huge. It might be the size of this room here. It's super huge. And the thing that I do collect from them the most is that they have this section of Black history. So it's Langston Hughes or Nikki Giovanni, like reading, like doing the voiceover for like someone's work, or they're like reading their own poetry. They have Malcolm X and Martin Luther King like speeches. They have like the whole like written collection of roots. So I collect a lot of like Black history on vinyl. And it's very interesting too, because when I'm in there, this section is super small. But they got every John F. Kennedy speech ever given. They have Ronald Reagan everywhere. They have, what is his name? John Wayne shit everywhere. And I'm just like, it saddens me, but it also reminds me why this archiving work is very serious and why we can do it in different facets. We can do it as audio, we can do it as video, we can do it as video, because I'm in this small section like looking for like these special vinyls of black spoken history, and I'm not finding them. And when I look at like the white male counterparts, they're all there. The section is pretty huge. And so my favorite is cameras and Black spoken history on vinyl.
I want to answer that question myself if possible. You got a comment question?
Yeah. Why do you keep the real racist things that you find? Like, that's really interesting. Because it would make me feel a way looking at that, especially in the space where I'm creating, but everybody's different, so.
Well, it's not in my home, it's in my studio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel a way. I just feel like it don't need to be in there.
Period.
I went to Eastern Shore, and I stayed in this really cute, like, Black-owned bed and breakfast. And I went to, like, these venture stores, and it's super cheap. And I went to this one place in Manning, South Carolina, and I saw this music book of just, like, this written music. And on the cover of it was blackface. And I went to the lady, and I was like, how much is this? And she was like, it's free for you. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Hand that over, thanks. So that's the type of shit that I'm on. Like, I'm going to take that, and you're going to give it to me for, like half of whatever you're trying to sell it for. But it's just something I feel kind of called to do. Yeah,
I think, like, as somebody also, I'm from the East, right? And so I know a lot of people from the South who collect that kind of material, and I think that it's really, at least from my perspective, it does draw an importance to a specific history. Like, because, I think that even now in 2022, the way that people will be talking about racism just be so like, but it's so embedded in the land. You know what I'm saying? Even nature is like, oh, we're not doing this anymore, so we're just gonna burn all of this down, So I think that certain objects really speak to like the violence that like we have gone through not even that long ago, And so it's like, maybe personally I wouldn't collect those materials, but I do understand why people would collect. Is that accurate or like?
Yeah. And also, I was raised by my grandparents. They were born in 1924 and 1927. I was born in 91. Like, I've seen every John Wayne movie you could possibly see. Like, I was raised on the things that they were raised on and the things that they watched and embraced. So it's something that feels really familiar, but something that I'm just, I just feel like this is something that I want to hold, because the moment where it needs to be visible, or the moment that it needs to be, put out into the world will happen. Like, I know a curator, her name's Jessica Moss. She's curating a show at the Mint Museum, and the show is just items that Black collectors have. It's not even based in fine art. It's not based in like paintings and photos, but it's simply an invitation to show, the museum and the spectators and audience what Black people collect, which I really love. So, I kind of was, when she told me, I was like, yeah.
Wait, hold on.
The Jim Crow Museum is a great Black archive. It's all the stuff you're talking about. It's all that stuff. Like,
here?
It's not here in Detroit, but they take donations. Like, I've donated stuff before. I run a creative reuse, and we get donated some messed up shit, and I've shipped it out there. But it is a huge archive. It's a huge history, and they do it to preserve it and what it was actually meant in our history, rather than what people in the South believe it to be.
Thanks for that.
It's actually based, I think, in Grand Rapids. It's a part of, I think, Ferris State, so Big Rapids. It's here in Michigan. Yeah.
Of course it's in Michigan.
Of course. Of course.
Goddamn Michigan.
Alrighty, I just want to, for one, again, say thank y'all for this amazing conversation. Thank y'all for giving me the dream of being Oprah for a day.
You get a car, you get a car, you get a car.
Not on my dime, but yeah. But again, thank y'all so much for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for LA Media Projects and LA Media Conference for providing the space. And we just want to say, have fun, enjoy the rest of the conference. We are going to turn up tonight to some amazing performances.
We outside.
We outside. So if y'all catch me twerking on the live stream from tonight's party, you ain't see nothing. Have a nice night.
I took my strange ways of being and made the world that work for me. I took my strange ways of being and made the world I couldn't get. I'm on the earth full of parts of me. What secrets did I find? Big and dark and stranger thing. The first one of my kind. I took my strange ways of being and made the world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made the world I couldn't get enough. I made a universe. Don't know who might be watching me. Step around your heart. Conversations in my mind. I put my fears aside. I took my strange ways of being and made the world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of being and made the world that worked for me. I took my strange ways of